So the good news is we're not doing anything new. We're looking at another way to write something that you know how to do. And then we're going to get into some word problems today and go from there. But there's a couple words we need to look at. This is the one we're doing. Complex fractions. Can you see that? Let me make it a little bolder.
I can see.
Complex fractions. Any idea what complex as in fractions refers to, John?
No, refers to advanced fractions.
Advanced. So what might an advanced fraction look like if you think that's what it means?
Probably has decimals and exponents as well.
Well, you might be happy to know that no, that's not what we're doing with that yet.
Yeah.
Certainly sounds complex though. Ready?
It's like when there's a fraction, and then there's a fraction bar, and then there's another fraction.
That is correct. So complex fraction looks like this.
Good job.
Fraction. You got it, Alex?
Yeah.
Anybody else see it, Alex?
I got it.
Okay. So that looks pretty intimidating, right? So we don't need to be intimidated by it. We need to remember what that is. So Braden, you said that was a little intimidating looking. Can you remember what a fraction bar really means?
Oh, division.
It means division. So all this means is this,
Oh.
which is easy, right?
Yes.
You said no.
Ryan the wire.
Ryan, finish the problem for me.
So, don't you flip it, the 5 and the 2?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't cancel. So,
What goes there?
time. And then it's 1 times 5, which is 5. And then 3 times 2, which is 5.
There you go.
Good job.
Good. I mean, we've already done division of fractions. But what do you think is the purpose of a setup like that? I mean, like, why can't they just say that? What might you see, God bless you, in something like that, John?
Well, I think it'd be, honestly,
What?
I have no idea what
You thought it would come to you as you lowered your hand? Braden?
To intimidate the speaker.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, I guess I can't argue that because I don't think so, but I don't know. Ryan?
Like, let's say you were using like a third of a foot, which is 6 inches, but you didn't want to write 6 inches, and you have to do that divided by 2/5 of a foot.
So you're basically saying because of shorthand notation, which I tend to agree with. I mean, it's just an easier way to show division. I would also maybe think about, like, if I was comparing things, like in a recipe, if I need 1/3 cup of sugar to every 2/3 cup of butter, something like that. You don't tend to think of it as a division problem, but if it was 1/3 cup of sugar to 2/5 cup of butter, then all that means is it's 5 sugars to 6 butters. So we've simplified that comparison, okay? If that's a complex fraction, what's that called? What's not a complex fraction? Because that's still a fraction. There's my numerator, there's my denominator. What's the opposite of that?
Simple fraction?
Simple fraction. You are on it.
brain.
Aw. Wait a minute. So wait, how come it doesn't? Oh, I know what. Where'd it go?
8 and 6 inches. I'm getting
Nothing erases and can't find what I want.
Yeah, you remember the math, you
Where'd that come from?
I drew it.
Thanks.
That's pretty.
So talented.
When I push this plus sign, it's supposed to go to the same screen.
Hey, yo.
I think I really do need to do this, but that's Okay.
No, I'm shopping from.
So simple fraction is the opposite of complex. So think about that, because it's not simplified. Simplified means reduced. What's simple? Simple as in a kind of fraction. What do you think, Emma?
Part of the fraction that it's like there's like a normal fraction, not like a complex fraction.
You're correct, but you're not really telling me anything. Like, but what is it then? If it's not complex, what does it look like?
It's just a fraction. It's just like a fraction divided by another fraction, but it's not under a bar line. A complex.
How about this? Give me an example of what you think a simple fraction is.
Okay. 1/6.
Stop. 1/6. That's a simple fraction.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, tell me.
So now listen to this. So a simple fraction would be like 1/6. Going back to this other one, gosh, I really want to go back to the other one. It is not, oh, I erased it, didn't I? Is that what I had?
Yes.
Now, to you, it looks like two fractions versus one. But in reality, numerator, denominator, numerator, denominator. They're both two fractions, but a complex fraction, the numerator and denominator are fractions. Okay, I suppose they could be decimals too, but most of the time you see them like this. Here, the numerator and denominator are integers. Why do I say integers instead of whole numbers? Because we also obviously can have negatives in there. Kayla?
Is a simple fraction something that can't be simplified?
No, that's what I was writing, and I'm not going to risk going back to the other screen again, but this is simple. What I had written up there was simplified is reduced. So simplified indicates something has been reduced. Simple fraction is just a description of what it's made up
So
of.
can like 4/8 be?
4/8 is a simple fraction.
Okay.
Yep. 2/3 divided by 7/8. That's a complex fraction. Are you seeing the difference, Brian?
Is complex only for fractions, even if the fractions are equal to decimals?
Well, that's why I'm saying I think you probably could have, 0.72 over 0.34. I mean, or 1. I would say that's a complex fraction, because you can make them fractions. In this case, I think we treat this a little differently though. Like we could just move decimals over in that one, and it would become a simple fraction. So I tend to really stick towards these. So for the time being, let's get rid of that. Okay, but so number one, it's different to see. It's important to see the difference between simple fraction and simplified fraction. Number two, it's important to see the difference between simple fraction and complex. But mostly, number three, how do we simplify a complex fraction? We just divide, okay? And the numerator is the one that comes first. Right?
Can I go to the bathroom?
Yeah. John?
So let's say in a simple fraction that has exponents, would that make it a complex fraction?
So give me an example.
1 to the 5th power.
1?
Yeah, to the 5th power over 3 to the 9th power.
That's not a complex fraction.
3.
See, I guess what we gotta veer away from is when a lot of you are hearing complex versus simple, you're thinking hard versus easy.
Yes.
And that's not, I mean, I'm sure it's somewhat related because these, whoops, there it was. This is that does look harder than that. I mean,
Yeah.
this is, if I said make each of these a decimal, well, I'd have to do 2/3 divided by 7/8 or 1/3 divided by 2/5, get that, and then do the numerator divided by the denominator. Here I would just do numerator divided by denominator. So sure, it leads up to more steps, and for most people's interpretation, harder, easier. But that's not really what it means. Complex means the numerator and denominator are fractions themselves. Simple means they're whole numbers or integers. Okay? So we get back to what you just said. That's really maybe a series of steps that we'd have to work out. I have no idea what 3 to the 9th power is, but that would be whatever number that is, and it's a simple fraction. Exponents don't make them complex, I guess, okay? Just make some more steps, but again, complex doesn't mean harder, it means what's it made up of, okay? So, everybody try this one.
You have to reduce.
You should. Yeah, guys, reduce it from not well. What you should be thinking is canceling, if it can. Guys, there's a lot of you that aren't canceling. And immediately that's coming to my mind that I either have to give you a whole exercise on canceling or just start taking points off or not. Okay, we're gonna come up with a few more, just a few of you. But you should have started out with -4/5. Whether you wrote this step or not, doesn't really matter. But the second one flips. Right? Cancel, and you get -8 minutes. Who got that? Yeah, I see that most of you got that. I'm not gonna ask who got it by getting 40/45 and then reducing. If you did that, how about you erase that and write the cancellation part so you can remember. Okay? And if this would have been mixed number, we still would go through the same process we know of getting a mixed number into an improper, right? And going from there. So any questions on complex fractions? Come on in, join us. All right, then let's